All right, y'all. All right, we're gonna edit. All right. Now back to the apocryphal books. As we look at encyclopedias, they're giving these encyclopedias away at our libraries now. As the libraries move digital and get away from these, they are actually throwing them away, and instead of just putting them in the trash, they are giving them away. They've given us 3 sets. First set wasn't complete. The second set, something was wrong with it, and then the third set, it was like, hey, I know somebody that'll take them. You know what I'm saying? So they stopped me as I was coming in the door. We're gonna look in this book right quick. Oh, this is, by the way, if you didn't catch it, this is. I don't even know where you get this thing in. Anyway, guess it ain't important. I almost got at it. I almost went by it. But look here. This is the encyclopedia, and it's in all 3 of these 3 sets we got here. Ain't no uniqueness to this one. You can get on the web and look it up. But it says J is the 10th letter of our alphabet and was the last to be added. It developed from the letter I, which was the 10th letter in the alphabet used by the Semites, who once lived in Syria and Palestine. They probably adopted an Egyptian hieroglyphic. See, I can't read it. I think you guys can read it, but I can't. And then I can't hold it there yet. But anyway, you read in here, what you're going to find out is that the J is a made-up letter. See how it's an I right there? That's how it started off. It was an I, and then they made the I, they made that little swoosh at the end of it when they made it capitalized. So that's the lowercase version of it, and it was the I, or the iota. You see? This is the progression of the I. It goes from where it is now to what it used to be, an I. Okay? And it says the Greeks about 600 BC. That's what they used, about 600 BC. But before that, the Phoenicians changed the Semitic letter about 1000, and they named it Yod for hand. But keep going back in time. It says the Semites simplified the Egyptian symbol about 1500 BC. And then you go back and you say the Egyptians about 3000 BC wrote with a symbol meaning hand, the basis of the letter I and J. So we get our letter I from the original letter Y, or Yod. Yod. It made they sound like yours or yesterday. And we get up to the J. And so that's what the encyclopedia says. What say you? I should have known. King James Version, see Bible. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the only Bible in the world. Alright, we on track there. We got it. Alright, look here. You ain't gonna be able to see it, so maybe I could take a picture of it or something and show you what I'm reading here. I think there's an image up there. Y'all be careful now. You know, careful, ain't the shepherd. We got angels of shepherds now. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to introduce you to them. But I'm gonna go ahead and read a little bit of this for edification. If I get credit for doing so, what it says. Men have traveled far and wide over the earth into strange lands and among strange peoples. They have found that things of importance in their own lives are unknown and unimportant in foreign lands. Names like those of Shakespeare, Dante, Ibsen, and Goethe are known only in parts of the world, but there is one book which the traveler finds in the farthest corners of the earth. That book is the Bible. This does not mean that every African hut has its Bible, as the American or English home has, but it does mean that many translations of the Bible have been widely distributed over the globe. Almost everyone in the world can find at least parts of the Bible written in his own language. In all, there are nearly 250 complete translations and about 1,100 translations of part of it. Many millions of Bibles are sold each year. Okay. Then we go on to the divisions of the Bible. The Jews considered some of their sacred writings as the record of an agreement between themselves and God. They called them a covenant, or more often, a testament. The Old Testament deals with the Jews and their history under the laws that Moses gave to them. The Jews divide the books of the Hebrew Bible into three groups: the law, the prophets, and the writings. The law includes the first 5 books of the Bible, called the Pentateuch: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The earlier prophets include the historical books from Joshua to Kings. The latter prophets are Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the 12 minor prophets. The writings include the books of Psalms, Proverbs, Job, Song of Songs, Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Chronicles. This arrangement differs in several ways from the one Christians follow. Scholars know who wrote some of these books. Others are known only by tradition. Many persons regard the first 5 books as the work of Moses. They consider the Psalms to be the work of David, but scholars maintain that authorship of these works is often to question. These are scholars. They're talking about people who actually read it. If you read it, you know David ain't wrote all of them. Other people wrote. There's some unknown people. Solomon wrote some of those. Other people wrote some of them. Some folk I ain't never even heard of wrote. You know, to my chief musician. Oh, it goes on to say, the New Testament includes 27 books. The New Testament includes 27 books, and they fall into 3 natural groups. The first group includes the historical books, the 4 Gospels, and the Acts of the Apostles. The epistles make up a second group. The third group is a book of prophecy called Revelations, or the Apocalypse. The Gospels were not written until some year after Christ was crucified. Matthew, Mark, and Luke wrote their Gospels to preserve the stories handed down by word of mouth. The Gospel of John was the last to be completed, probably in AD 90. Okay. The canon of the Bible is a term used for the books that are believed to belong in the Bible because they were inspired by God. These books are therefore authorized by the various churches. At first, the word canon meant rod or carpenter's rule. It later came to mean the authority by which the scriptures were measured. The book accepted as canonical by the Protestant Church have not always been regarded as part of the canon. For example, some persons point out that the name of God is not mentioned in the Hebrew text of Esther and believe that it is not canonical. Some persons consider the Apocrypha to be inspired, and others do not. The Jews had fixed the canon of their books by about AD 90. Oh, let me go back. See Apocrypha. Let me read the whole thing. Some persons consider the Apocrypha to be inspired, and others do not. See Apocrypha. The Jews had fixed the canon of their books by about AD 90. By the canon of the New Testament was not fixed, but the canon of the New Testament was not fixed until hundreds of years later. Roman Catholics accept more books as part of the canon of the Old Testament than most Protestants do. Okay? So, but what we have to remind ourselves, or what we have to understand that we're doing by accepting books and putting books down, is we're putting ourselves in a position of God. All of these books were inspired. All of them were. Man cannot write this kind of stuff, nor would he write. Would he write it? If he could write it, he wouldn't. But he can't. He can't write the scriptures. Try it. Just come up with something new. What you going to write about? He has no idea about heaven or what the Lord's like. The only way he's going to get there is die and come back. Ain't many people doing that. You know what I'm saying? So, no, what that, and then they look at the books they throw it out. They throw it out Enoch and said it wasn't canonical. They threw out Jubilees and said it wasn't Canaan. They threw out Jasher and said it wasn't inspired by God. They threw out, you know what I'm saying, Maccabees and said, of course they threw out Maccabees. Maccabees is the book that folks talking about 400 years of history missing. Well, no 400 years of history missing. It was 400 years of history in Maccabees, and they don't want you to know the story of Maccabees. Look that one up. How was the Bible developed? I'm going to find me some glasses too. Hold on. Let me make this a little bit easier. Make a thing, take a picture. I don't know where it is. How the Bible developed. The long life of the Bible began thousands of years ago. The sacred writings were at first called the books. At that time, books were written by hand on scrolls of papyrus. The Jews wrote their first sacred writings on leather scrolls. Jesus probably read from such a scroll when he went into the synagogue and stood up to read. At the time, only the first parts of the Bible had been completed. Scrolls discovered in caves near the Dead Sea during the 1940s and 1950s include copies of many of these books. See Dead Sea Scrolls. The influence of the sacred writings spread through Europe and rapidly as rapidly as Christianity. Well, forget it. Hey, Dead Sea Scrolls. You know what I mean? So that's another book. That's the one book I don't have. I don't have the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well, that ain't the one book. That's one book I don't have. It's Dead Sea Scrolls. I got that. We're going to read all of that. Yeah, let's finish it. The influence of the sacred writings spread through Europe as rapidly as Christianity did. Interest in non-sacred or secular learning died down in the troubled times of the latter Roman Empire. But interest in the book never lagged during the so-called Dark Ages which followed. Only concern for the sacred writings kept the knowledge of reading and writing alive during this time. There were no printing presses. Every new copy of the scripture had to be copied out by hand. This was long, hard work. Every monastery had its writing room, in which monks toiled over their precious manuscripts. Every monastery had its writing room, in which monks toiled over their precious manuscripts. They knew the holiness of their task and tried to keep their hearts and minds pure for it. You know, the Lord put them to work. You know what I'm saying? That's what that's all about. That was his plan. See, you know what I'm saying? I hate to use a bad word, you know, I want to be your Nigga, But we wouldn't have did that. We wouldn't have did that, you know what I'm saying? Not in these circumstances, not while we didn't got away from y'all and backwards and all. We could barely read and write this English language. You're gonna talk about understanding and writing Hebrew and translating and keeping up, man. Come on now. He let them do it. He let the Gentiles do it. He let the monks do it. He let the same people that try to steal him do it. Now we go in there to their little monasteries or wherever, and we get the rest of them documents they got hid down there. Lost books. They still got some books down there they don't want us to know. They don't want us to know this stuff in this book. They don't want us to know this stuff in this book right here. They don't want us to know that. Talking about they lost. It ain't lost. Who lost it? Who forgot it? Ain't nobody forgot it. You know what I'm saying? You ain't forget them over there. You know what I'm saying? How you gonna forget this one right here? You know what I'm saying? This was the second book for me as the really more. Let me clean it up a little bit. Where that K book at? So we started off with that K book. Cover that up too. Alright, did we finish? Let's see. We're gonna keep on going. Some of the manuscripts they wrote were very beautiful. They were decorated and illustrated or illuminated with gold or silver leaf and glowed with red and blue letters and designs in the margins. The monks labored with love and kept the Bible alive. See manuscript. The wonderful invention of printing came in the 1400s. It changed the whole matter of learning. Printing made it easier to make copies of books. One of the first books printed was a Bible by Johannes Gutenberg. Its date is 1456. Since then, other printers of the Bible have experienced difficulties just as great as those Gutenberg faced in the first printing. Many new kinds of type had to be designed for languages which had never been printed, but only spoken, but no difficulty had been too great. Many new kinds of type had to be designed for languages which had never been printed, but only spoken. But no difficulty has been too great. So that's what they mean by it's perfected the language. It's because people didn't care about reading and writing until the Bible came into effect. They was over there chilling, doing, carrying on, farming and building and living, and all of a sudden you got this Bible that you're hearing about, this preacher down there talking about, and you want to copy for yourself. Now all of a sudden we got to start translating and writing stuff out. What you want your J to look like? Yeah, like, do we need a J?